Okay, lamprey, transverse sections. Hopefully you've already done the sagittal section. It doesn't really matter what order you go in though, but sometimes it'll be easier if you do the sagittal section on your own specimen first so that you can learn to identify the structures there and then transfer that knowledge here to the transverse sections. So every year I'll do the transverse sections, also called cross sections, slightly differently, but roughly the same areas so that some of the major organs that you don't see as easily or you see differently in the sagittal section you'll be able to see on these cross sections. So get the lamprey that I prepared for you. Use this as a guide, but know that these sections might not be exactly in the same spots, but you should still be able to use it to identify the structures you need to. Here you can see I've done several sections on this full lamprey, and then we will take them all individually. It happens that this one is a male and the sagittal section was a female, so that works out pretty well. We'll be able to see what the testes look like, and I did a couple of sagittal sections within the cross sections so that we can get a better idea of what the testes will look like on sagittal section too. So I'm going to zoom in a little and then take each section at a time. Okay, most of the structures you'll be identifying on sagittal section, but there are some things on cross section that are interesting to look at too. So the first section here will also have the buccal funnel, so that'll be the easy part. It's also a good idea to try to take this apart and put it back together like a puzzle. It really helps you learn what the actual structures are when you have to figure it out that way. So if I go through the mouth and oral cavity here, usually if you take your probe and you very gently move it along, you'll eventually, you'll see it come out there. So you can see how the mouth, the oral cavity and mouth leads to the pharynx here. So that's the pharynx area, okay. The dark area here, that is the olfactory sac. You just start to see the light section right there, which is the pineal complex. Now underneath, ventral to the olfactory sac, you should be able to see the hypophyseal pouch that helps move the water in and out of the olfactory sac. If you don't see it immediately, check the next section. Okay. So now I'm on the next section here, and I can see the olfactory sac here, and just underneath that, you see that pouch right there? There's your hypophyseal pouch. Okay. Now if you look at this carefully, see how well I can get it to focus before it loses focus. There we go, that's good. You can really see the increased surface area here. So water comes into here and there's just all kinds of surface area there containing chemoreceptors to be able to sense that water really well. Same thing on that one. Okay, now from there, these are the lateral eyes, and the lens itself is quite hard, and you can see here the nerves and the attachments to be able to move that eye, but the lens itself is quite hard. That's true. You'll still notice that too again if you decide to take the eye out in the shark. Cartilage here containing the lamprey, which is the type of cartilage that lampreys have. Pharynx into esophagus. I cut this one slightly here. Okay. Just can't see the notochord yet because we're not caudal enough yet to see the notochord. But here you need to note, let me try to get this to focus again close. This is one of the important things that you don't see on sagittal section that you need to be able to see on cross section here. These right here. So You should be able to see them under, or ventral to the olfactory sac, then go eyes, and then go ventral, and you'll see these muscles here. But then on the right section, you'll also see this glandular tissue that is clearly separate from the muscle, but at first it might look part of it. Look for it, it's actually separate from. And it's mushier. See, this is nice and fibrous muscle and mushy glandular tissue here. Those are the oral glands. So the oral glands are what produces the anticoagulant that helps keep the blood meal from the host flowing for the lamprey. Okay, this is all myomere muscle here. Muscle there. Okay, so from there, you can start to see the gills here, which means that pharynx is now separated into esophagus and pathway to the gills. Gills. Now you can see the notochord. You can also just dorsal to the notochord. You can see this start up here. This little area, that's going to be the spinal cord, which means the brain looks like it's right here. See how I just kind of traced that back and decided how far it went? I don't see it here. We've got olfactory sac, right? But I do notice here that that's the spinal cord. It's definitely not the nerve cord, and it's definitely not big enough for brain. So that means that it has to go back this way somewhere. If I open it here, that looks like it's getting larger. See, notochord, spinal cord is getting larger, but there's still clearly cord there. So then if I go right to the other side, I can start to see that it's getting larger, and we're getting much more toward brain tissue there. Here you can see the filament sort of structure of the gill really well. So these are gills. That's where that gas exchange is going to happen. You'll probably find a pouch on one of these sections somewhere. You can see the gill pouch clearly. You can put, I don't want to use the sharper needle there because I'm more likely to do damage. Push your probe through and see how that goes through like that. Nice big pouch. Hold lots of water there for plenty of water to come in for gas exchange. Part of lining these up like a puzzle is also making sure everything, all the color fits just right. The organs look like they go together just right. Anyway, keep working your way down. Notochord, spinal cord. And we haven't started too much of the hemopoietic tissue just yet. Now, turn it over here, and suddenly, whoa, we have a giant organ there. It's green color, liver. Liver here is much larger. Like I mentioned that on the sagittal section in the male, it's much larger than it is in the female because it has that reproductive capability, or the reproductive help there where it produces pheromones, I believe. So here's the intestine, because it's going to go very carefully. See how it comes out dorsal to the liver? So that's intestine, and if you look at it, we can start to see the little ridges there. Okay, so still gills there, liver there. Gill pouches there, and gill pouches there. Okay, so liver, intestine is going to run dorsal to that. I don't know if that's in focus or not. Liver, intestine, dorsal to that. Here are your blood vessels, notochord, spinal cord, and now you can start to see this little triangle, sort of rounded triangle shape. That's the start of that hemopoietic tissue there that produces blood. The other side, liver starting to become less prominent. Blood vessel, intestine, blood vessels, intestine, liver, notochord, spinal cord, hematopoietic tissue starts to become pretty darn distinct there. And this is one that I did a sagittal section addition too. So at this point, the liver's getting smaller, but you can still clearly make it out. This is the testicular tissue starting here. So I open that up, it's intestine right there. You see the ridges. If I open that up, you can kind of see, much different than the ovaries and eggs. It looks just sort of globular. It comes off of the dorsal aspect of the pleural paroxysmal cavity in a similar way that the ovaries do, but it just doesn't contain the eggs. So it's actually testes here. So those are testes. Liver you no longer see, so you get testes, intestine, blood vessels, notochord, spinal cord, hematopoietic tissue. Keeps going down that way. This one I did another section to be able to see the testes again. So this is kidney. See, it's a flap. That's clearly kidney. And it's got that dark line along it there. And this is the testicular tissue. So had you done the sagittal section had a male, that's what it would have looked like. Oops. Okay, so now we've got kidney. See how they're kind of flap like kidney? And then the intestine is running down the midline there. Kidney on either side. Now note the shape of the kidney. Round flap, and then it's got this other flap down here. Remember we talked about that in the sagittal section. This is the archonephric duct. So if you actually very carefully put your teasing needle in there, you can see that it's a tube. So that's the tube that's draining along that ventral aspect of the kidney all the way down and out the cloaca. Here on this, I just turned that same one over. So kidney, archonephric duct, turn that over. Orient yourself again here. Notochord. Spinal cord area is getting much smaller at that point, as is the hematopoietic tissue. It's disappearing onto the tail because this is the cloaca here. So now this end over here would be tail. This is body. Right here is the actual cloaca itself. You see that there. Here's the little projection. That is the papillae, and it's coming out the cloaca because this is where the archonephric duct drains into. So if I'm really careful there, I can get my teasing needle in there and see that actually it's going to lead to the archonephric ducts. I'm going to try to do a section close to that now to see if we can see it any differently there. Okay, so we know that's the urogenital papilla, or the genital papillae, where the archonephric ducts drain. If I take my teasing needle and work my way back, and I might not be able to do this, you know, it's just, like I said, each dissection is different, and you just kind of have to experiment with it and see what you can come up with. Sometimes you do these things and they come out really clear, and sometimes you don't. Got ducts draining down in there, your intestine's going to drain out into the cloaca. But anyway, clearly our archonephric duct is going to run the whole length of that kidney all the way down, and it's going to excrete that waste right here through this urogenital papillae right there. Okay, so that's pretty much what you have to know on the cross sections. Make sure that you also when you take these sections, refer to the PowerPoint and orient yourself and find everything you can possibly find. You never know what I'm going to ask you on a practical, so make sure you find everything you can possibly find. If you have any questions, just ask me. I'll help you find them. Quiz each other as usual, and once you get through the cross sections and the sagittal section and the external and you've got everything ready to go, you should be done with your lamprey.